Thank you for that. I'm joined now by Republican Congressman Lance Gooden of Texas. I have a lot of questions for you, but let me start with that one since that's where John finished. There's a lot of debate about what there is an appetite for and not for among lawmakers. What do you think?
Well, I think the appetite seems to be a lot more serious right after one of these crises, and then after time passes, we find that it's difficult for Congress to agree on anything. I'll tell you that in my conservative district, the appetite is one for protecting the Second Amendment, but also realizing that we have a crisis in this country. We have a mental health crisis. We have these events happening that have been happening for many years, long before President Trump came along. And I think it's unfortunate that the discussion has now turned into who are we going to blame, and the Democrats are blaming the president for what happened this weekend, and that's crazy to me.
Okay, but in terms of a solution, you know, there a lot of ideas out there on the table, whether it is the red flag laws, whether it's the idea of universal background check. Is there anything that you're hearing floating around that you think could have a majority agreeing on it? Would it be those red flag laws? I mean, what's the most likely thing that could get passed?
The most likely thing that I think could get passed would be these red flag laws. The problem with the red flag laws that I have and that many conservatives have is the lack of the judicial process. And so as long as we address that, I think that would be something bipartisan. Another problem I'm seeing is Democrats, I think they realize that this red flag legislation could be bipartisan if we in fact account for the adjudication process, and because they know it could potentially be passed easily, they're going to say that's not good enough, and so you're going to find yourself where we are now with nothing being passed.
Well, that's very depressing. Let me move on then to what's going on today and the pictures that we're looking at here on the side of the screen. You know, you're obviously from Texas. What would you like to see the president do as he goes to Texas today?
You know, the president is the healer-in-chief, whether it's this president or past presidents. And I think it's important that he's coming to Texas and to express his sympathy on behalf of the nation. This is a caring president, a loving president. I'm disappointed that some of my colleagues have said they won't even be visiting with the president and welcoming him. One in particular said he wouldn't answer her phone call yesterday, and so now she won't meet with him today. If I call the president and he can't speak to me but says I'll see you in person tomorrow, that's good enough for me. But I think it's disappointing that we're seeing rallies and this has turned into a political circus. It shouldn't be that way. Today should be a day where the president, on behalf of the nation, says we love you, we're caring for you, and we're going to do something.
What do you think that political individuals could do at this point to move on from this moment? I mean, what do you think you as a congressman could do to turn down the rhetoric, if you think that would help?
I think some of this perhaps can't be prevented. In this particular case, we have a former member of Congress who was running for president, and this happened in his hometown, and so he's gone home and made this about his campaign. He has said that the president should be more presidential and said that he should turn down his rhetoric, and then he drops the F-bomb every other interview. I don't think that's very presidential, and it's raising the heat, and we've reached the boiling point. And when members of Congress are saying we won't even welcome the President of the United States of America to our community when we've got a crisis going on, when we've had a serious tragedy, that's alarming. If the President said immediately after, hey, you know what, I'm not going to come, there would have been outrage. And now that he's coming, there's outrage.
Congressman Lance Gooden, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.